more than 30,000 people in the UK were infected with HIV and hepatitis C after being given contaminated blood products in the 70s and 80s. A public inquiry has described the scale of the scandal as utterly horrifying. Doctors, government officials, the NHS, politicians, all of them were responsible and for failures to patients. The compensation scheme has been recommended, and just this week, our government announced that there would be sums of starting with £2,000 and £10,000 to each of the persons who had suffered, and to their families. And the main patient groups involved in this were haemophiliacs, whose blood doesn't clot properly, and the others were people who were given blood transfusions because of health issues, often women who, after they'd had a difficult delivery of a baby. 300 children with haemophilia were infected, and all of them had bleeding disorders of one kind or another, and certainly we know that they suffered the consequences in having HIV or Hep C at some later stage in their lives. It should be known that hepatitis C can lead to sclerosis of the liver and liver cancer. It has taken decades to become apparent the full scale of this. It's thought that 2,900 people have died, and that of haemophiliacs that 750 have died. And so it's been a repeated and repeated failure. Those in authority did not put the families or the patients first. So I really wanted to turn over to you, Nick. You're the person who did so much research on all of this for us. What do you see as being the main issues that are at stake here now for us, particularly as lawyers?
Well, I think as lawyers, we've got to try and get to the bottom of why there were these failures. The failures being an almost willful, as Sir Brown described it, blindness to the risks involved in giving this blood, which was known to be extremely risky. I mean, the fact is that the blood was imported in large quantities from the United States, where it had been paid for by people who were described in the report as being Skid Row derelicts, or from people in prison.
Why were we getting it from America? What was that about?
Because we weren't self-sufficient. That was the other problem. We did not. Our system for collecting blood was fragmented. It was disorganized, and it did not collect nearly enough. And so we had to import from abroad. But even the blood that we were collecting domestically was in large quantities coming from prisons. That didn't end until the late 1980s, according to the report. So the fact is that although the line was taken that it was the best treatment that was available, and with the implication that it was generally safe, it was known not to be safe. And this has been known for decades. And an inquiry we'll talk about this in more detail later, and inquiries were raised. Charlie will know about this because he was in government at the time during Margaret Thatcher's regime and the Tony Blair government. The idea of an inquiry for this ever-developing scandal was being debated, but no inquiry until 2017. And Charlie will be able to give some explanation as to why the government, which he was a part, resisted an inquiry so strongly. The fact is that compensation is now there has been one interim payment made of £100,000. Compensation is so late in the day. So many people are dead from as a result of this. But I think that the playing down of the enormous risks that have been taken with people's lives by importing what was known to be dangerous products is the most dreadful, terrible tale.